And so for me, like, I don't really get that when I'm drinking. So I actually don't drink alcohol anymore. And I think it helps me. Yeah, I think it helps me. It's a, personal choice. If you do it, like, power to you. If I could be spiritually where I want to be and do it, I would, but I just, can't. And so I don't, right? But that's me, you know what I mean? Other people can, and power to them. But yeah, it's, I know for me, that would definitely, because instead of having a conversation, I think I brought over a pinata and exploded it all over your guys' house.
Yeah, I think that was my first impression. It was cleaning up all the...
I think like, hey, this guy knows some cool stuff, It's like, who the hell is this guy who just exploded this pinata with all this candy in my house?
Oh man, the worst part was that it was like Mexican candy, and you had drunk people just trying it and spitting it out, and so that got like all over the deck. And it was like the 4th of July. And so that was a pain in the ass to have to clean up.
I know, man. I've always felt bad. So I'll take this moment to publicly apologize to you and your roommates for that. I'm sorry about that. Let me know what I can do to make it right.
I'll make sure AJ listens to this so that he gets in on the apology as well.
Awesome. Sorry about that, AJ.
Hey, it's all a part of the path, right? And I think
right.
there's an interesting thing there where, I don't know what you want to call it, resentment, anger, whatever it was in that situation, right? It's like, why the hell do I have to be cleaning all this shit up, blah, blah, blah. That is such a powerful moment that you can use for, self-reflection. It's like, well, why are you getting angry at somebody else? Like, you had a party at your house and you knew your place was going to get trashed. You know what I mean? Like, you never said explicitly. Yeah. You never explicitly said no piñatas. So like, are you really angry at this person, or what are you really angry at?
Yeah, so I love that you say that, Clay, because one thing I know in my life, and one thing that I've been kind of like riffing on and tripping on, is I was thinking about attention and energy, and thinking and kind of thinking back to Albert Einstein saying that energy can't be created or destroyed; it can only be changed or transferred, right? And so it's like, at that point in my life, I was not in a good place. You know what I mean? And I was coming in and being completely inconsiderate, right? And partying too hard also blinded me from being able to be considerate and think, hey, maybe this isn't a good idea. Or maybe like after the pinata explodes, I should help him pick it up. But I mean, I'm completely unaware, right? And so me coming in with that, it went on to you guys, right? But coming in and kind of changing my perspective in my life and seeking in a lot of different ways to do things differently, right? It has allowed us to, maybe who didn't start off on a good fit, to actually come in together and connect. And I think the book list was the first thing. And then I heard your conversation with Paul Martins, who's actually a good friend of mine. We've been friends since like 6th grade, 7th grade, something like that. Used to do camping trips and sleepovers and all that. And so I was like, yeah, we read a lot of similar books. Like, we think about a lot of things similarly, and some a little bit differently, but also have a lot of the same friends. So I'm like, man, it's probably likely that we would be friends, or at least be able to have a cool conversation. So I'm glad we were able to kind of have it come full circle. One thing that has been such a key component of my life and my growth as a person, spiritually, professionally, and just overall, right? Like, I learned through a coaching program my company has, and they have these things they call bold laws, and one of them is your business grows to the extent that you do, right? And being an entrepreneur, I really took that to heart. Like, I need to be able to grow because I am my business, right? Like, I am the business. I don't clock in for someone else. Like, I am the business. So if I'm not growing personally, like, I'm not growing professionally. And resentments are like a really tricky thing. And holding these resentments, it's like, drinking poison and expecting you to get hurt, right? They don't work. They just, it just harbors a lot of bitterness. And instead of like allowing us to see our part and where we could be accountable, like, and to your example, you're like, well, I did have a party in PB Mission Beach and basically just invite a bunch of people in on a holiday weekend. Maybe it wasn't going to be like, hey, should I take my shoes off at the door? But on the flip side, right. It takes two to tango, right? Like, so it's like, if you look at it like that, better for you. It doesn't make me right? I would still say that I'm in the wrong, but it allows you to have some perspective and not let it take up rent in your head for free. You know what I mean? And for me personally, I can't live with resentment. And so I work really hard to actually, when I feel a resentment, to really look at it and see my part in it. And even if I have no part, understand that, like, you're not going to get mad at someone who, is sick, right? Like, for being sick. They're just sick. But if someone's spiritually sick or mentally sick, we tend to still get mad at them. You know what I mean? And be like, what's this guy's problem? And so being able to level of judgment, right? Myself from
like
that.
It's a level of like, oh, I figured it out. Why can't you figure it out? Kind of thing. And then like that doesn't help the process.
Exactly. And they're like pissed off by your good mood and energy, right? Like, it doesn't make them feel better. It almost makes them feel worse. And then it makes, sometimes if you're feeling good enough, you're like, it's whatever. They're just feeling bad. But sometimes it makes at least me feel kind of bad, because I'm like, well, I don't want you to feel bad. Now I feel kind of bad for feeling good, So it's,
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, if we want to dive into that, I have a whole piece of, we all have our own baggage and trauma that we grew up with. One of mine that was a couple layers down in the onion was unworthiness. And that was brought on because in high school, I was one of, if not the best the hitters on the baseball team. And what happened was there was an incident where our team like wasn't doing too well, wasn't playing too well. However, throughout the entire season, as a reference point, I was batting like 800, which is, if anyone doesn't listen to baseball, is insane. It was like halfway through the season, I was batting like 800. The coach, we're all jerking around in the during practice or something, and the coach like lines us up against the wall. And he's going down the list of telling everyone like what they should be doing better, or like, how could they not, why are they jerking off? Like, we could be better, blah, blah, blah. And he gets to me and he's like, Clayton did this excellent thing. And I'll save you guys the baseball terminology, but he did this thing and hit the ball exactly where he should have on this pitch. Why can't anyone else do that? And to your point, that ingrained in me like, oh, if I do good, everybody else is going to suffer because of it. And I didn't realize it, but that pivoted my entire mindset around it. And the rest of the year I went like, 150. I was batting like, 15%. It was a crazy, transformation just from getting that indentation of, well, if you do good, we're going to punish everybody else around you.
Yeah. And that's, it's so interesting too. And I love what you said, a couple layers down in the onion, because the deeper you go on an inward journey, and the more work you do in examining yourself and kind of looking for the root of the nature of the issue, the defect, to come to a moment like that in high school that might sound so insignificant to some, but it really left a mark on you, right? And then it makes you perform worse than something you did really good at. And I'm sure at the time, being young, you probably had some sort of identity with that, and then it kind of made you feel worse, and then you try to be like, well, now I want to do better, and then I can't, you know what I mean? And then there's this like feeling of loss and powerlessness. I can imagine. I'm just projecting.
No, you're totally right.
I just read one though called Mind Hacking. Have you?
No, I haven't heard that one
or read that one.
Not
yeah,
yet.
But he talks about a similar thing where when something comes in your mind, right, you just say thought, and it kind of just obliterates the thought. And it's the same thing, thought change. It doesn't really matter what you say, right? You could say spaghetti. It's like, hey, when certain thoughts come in, I'm replacing it with conscious action.
Right.
So I'm present to my thoughts, and I'm shutting it down before it can gain momentum, because it's so interesting how much momentum our brains can get if we let ourselves become identified with our minds. Mm-hmm. That can really throw us for a loop, right? And it's like we have the voice in our head that tells us things, right? That if you had like a roommate that told you that stuff, like, oh, you suck, you can't do this, you're not a podcaster, no one wants to listen to this. If you were hanging out with someone like that, you'd be like, fuck this guy, I'm not going to hang out with this guy. But that person literally lives in your head, but that's not you, right? as much as your arm is not you. It's a part of you. But no one's like, oh, I am my arm. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, that's just not how people are. Right. And so it's like, you're the conscious observer. That's you, right? That's the essence of you. And so being able to pay attention to that part of you that is not you, right?
Right.
And being able to, when it starts kind of acting up, be like, change thought, like, shut the fuck up. And I'm going to replace it with a new feeling, a new thought, a new action. And like, just the power of doing stuff, man, like with especially like positive affirmation. If you haven't done it, like I highly recommend it. It sounds super cheesy to certain people, and like on a level it is, but just writing down things like, look, if you want to make $1 million, like writing, I am a millionaire, I make $1 million, like money flows easily to me, and writing that kind of stuff down. I am worthy of making millions of dollars. I easily make millions of dollars, and then saying it over and over and writing it over and over. It sounds almost kind of like crazy, but it reprograms your subconscious and your RAS in your brain to actually start to believe it. And anyone who knows anything about psychology will tell you is your subconscious brain is so much more powerful than your conscious brain. It's really the one that's running this show in the background, right? Yeah. And so we take these activities that we can do consciously to just like inject this programming and reprogram, because our default, I mean, how old are you? I'm 33. How old are you?
27, baby.
You're 27. You're young. You just got the man beard, dude. Like, I'm 33 and I'm still like, can't grow it like that. I don't think I ever will. I don't think it's in the cards for me.
Too nice of a face to cover up.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. But like, I mean, let's say that I think I started going on like an inward spiritual journey, you know, with a lot of bumps in the road, but I want to say around 27, 28, kind of right around your age. I just felt like I had like an emptiness. I felt, it started a little bit before that with like my AID and doing that stuff and being exposed to it, but I wasn't ready. I was partying a lot, hanging out in PB, you know what I mean? And I just wasn't really in the environment, like, or in the headspace, right, to fully allow myself the growth. But I started to feel a void, and I started seeking. And so it's been a journey. The biggest thing that I got from it is like, we have, I don't know, a couple hundred to several hundred years of human history, but only like, I think, what was it, like 10,000 years ago was the first civilization of like Babylon or something, you know what I mean? And then in the last 200 something years, we had the Industrial Revolution. And then from like the 1900s, I mean, the first rinky-dink Wright Brothers airplane was in the early 1900s. And now we have like stealth fighting jets and drones. And so technology just like, it's like a compound effect of how fast it advances, but our evolution hasn't actually caught up with our technology. So our tech is outpacing our evolution. So we might be designed to live in this world where, you know, because human beings by our nature, I mean, compared to other animals, we're like weak. We come out of the womb like very weak, and we like typically one, maybe two.
We need 18
like, it's
years.
unusual
We need 18
to have twins.
years to be evolved. Yeah. Like
exactly.
Years for us to get matured. It's like, what?
I mean, it takes, And so it's like, you know what I mean? There's no like big litter. There's no this. And it's like, you know, but we're smart. We can communicate, and we're, for being physically weak in comparison, like we're very resilient. Right. But like, so I'm sure there's an evolutionary component, but now that we live in this society, right, where things like where I can go to Trader Joe's and buy food, and I can, you know what I mean? It's just, getting food and getting things, at least in the United States where we live, is not a problem, right? So like our survival needs, basic needs. So what happens is like there's this longing for this thing. And I realize that as much as like I can be very generous and sometimes generous, when I got right down to it, usually like when I started like going on this kind of journey, I was like, man, I'm a lot of times like really actually selfish and self-seeking. Even when I'm being generous, there's, even if it's like this insidious motive, maybe it's not for actually like anything material, but it's like, I wanted validation, or I want to be accepted in this group, or I want to be liked by this person. I like to give, right? And I believe that in order to receive, right? You have to give, right?
Right.
And what I discounted was like, I need to also be able to receive to be able to give. And what I didn't realize about that was, and I have this guy, the guy who taught me AID, his name's Thatch Wynn. He's like, it's funny. He's become so big on like socials where he's getting like parodied now. But the guy was he's such a cool guy. Like, and it's so funny when I see people like parody him or say anything about him on the internet who don't know him. Like, dude, you don't know this is one of the coolest, nicest guys who is just so humble, and he's helped me transform my life, right? And he taught me AID, but I took him one time, and this guy, by the way, is like a very wealthy real estate investor, like self-made. And he let me take him to lunch, and I said, here, let me get it, I'll pay. And we're at like this like rinky dink, like it's not rinky dink, it's cool, but it's like, hole in the wall restaurant in Chinatown in Seattle. And he's like, yeah, I'll let you pay because I need to be able to receive. And what I know about this dude is like everything he says like that, I know he's saying it because he's very generous with his knowledge and wisdom. And I know the way he says it, like there's something like I should be picking up. And this is like years ago. And it just hit me recently when actually Brett, like I moved, and I asked Brett to like, hey dude, will you help me like move a barbecue and do all this stuff, right? Like to my new house. And he's like, yeah, no problem. So he came with his truck. We loaded up, like a barbecue, a ladder, a couple things, and bring it like a couple miles over from one house to another. And I'm like, here, let me Venmo you some money. And he's like, no, like, don't worry about it. This is for anyone who's listening. We shouldn't talk so inside talk, with our personal friend group. But this is a friend, like a childhood friend of mine, right? And so
it's a good story.
A childhood friend of mine. We've been friends for a long time, and he's just like, I'm like, let me Venmo you. He's like, no, don't worry about it. Like, I'm just helping you out, right? Like, he's my buddy. Like, he's not like he needs money or something. It's like, but I felt like what I realized I was about to Venmo him money after he left, but I realized it's like, man, I don't allow people to give to me. I don't allow myself to receive but what I do allow is I allow myself to be bitter because people are always taking from me, or I give too much and I don't receive. I don't get enough in return. And it made me realize, well, I don't get enough in return because I don't allow myself to receive.
Fascinating.
And by not allowing myself to receive, I've set myself up to make everybody else wrong, have permission to be mad at the world. And when I have permission to be resentful and mad at the world, now I have an excuse and rationalization for my negative behaviors. And it's like, well, you came up and you fucked me over. So you know what? Fuck you. Like, I'm going to behave how I want. Right. And it's really, the payoff is I don't have to be accountability for my actions when I know that they're not in alignment with how I want to be.
It's like you want to make this instantaneous, like one-of-one trade, so that it's just like you're automatically balancing the scales right away, kind of thing. That's fascinating because It reminds me of another mutual friend of ours, Bryant Smith. Whenever I first met him, we got in an Uber or a Lyft. It was probably the first time I met him, I think, or maybe one of the second or third times. And we went somewhere, and I was like, oh, okay. Like, he's like, oh, I'll order the Uber. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, I'll Venmo you. He's like, no, don't worry about it. And I'm like, thinking to myself, I'm like, dude, what the fuck? It's like, it's a $20 Uber. Like, it's not anything crazy, right? And there's 4 of us. It was like $5. I was like, dude, I'll Venmo you. He's like, no, dude, don't worry about it. Like, you'll get me in the future. And to me, that sat so bizarre. It sat like so weird. It was like I get, it's like, yeah, I guess, but I didn't have this conception that like in the future, the deck could be like resolved. Like and maybe it wouldn't even be to him. Maybe I wouldn't even buy an Uber for him, but I would buy an Uber for somebody else, or I would somehow help somebody else do something. And it's so true to what you're saying. It's like, and it's kind of like what you put out in the universe will come back to you. It's like, just do what you need to do, follow your intuition, follow those things, because, if you're, I guess maybe I'm getting a little off the topic of it, but it's just like, it's okay to like let the universe fill that debt almost for you, or have you fulfill it in another way. It was just this little, like, it felt like just this little drop of just like, well, here you go. Here's your first little layer of the onion that we're going to peel away for you.
I love the thing that's so fun about kind of peeling that first layer is that's when, at least for me, it's like when I had a really powerful and profound spiritual experience, because I think as soon as you are exposed to blind spots, it's really hard not to have a spiritual experience, like one where you feel this sense of kind of enlightenment, because all of a sudden, wow, all of this stuff I've been confused about, I'm not really confused about anymore. I understand, but then it's this like heavy, like, fuck, well, now I have this information. Like, what am I going to do with it? Like, that kind of sucks. And for me, I know, like, just was really humbling, going through and looking back at people in my life that I had resentment for currently, or just at some point in my life, and really like inventorying that and looking at that, and then seeing my part in it, and where I was to blame. And most of the time it would be like the kind of, I guess, metaphor I like to use is like, if I walk up to you and step on your foot and then reach out my hand to shake your hand, and you're kind of like, ow, like, and you give like a face, and I'm like, what the fuck is this guy's problem? Like, this guy Clayton's always a dick. But it's like, I'm not seeing that I'm stepping on your toes before, right? Mm-hmm. And then so I'm just thinking that you're a dick, right? And so it made me just really realize, like, hey, I'm with all these people I have these feelings for. It's like, I've not been great towards them, right? And then having to be like, shit, like, I kind of suck. You know what I mean? No wonder I feel unworthy, or like I suck, because I do suck, and my subconscious knows it. My conscious brain doesn't. So I've caught my conscious brain up to where my subconscious already was, right? And my intuition, what it already knew, apparently, but I didn't consciously know. But then with that information, it was really humbling. Like, I had a sense of humility that I hadn't experienced before. And then basically through making that list of people, I had a list of people that I needed to go, make amends with, and apologize, and see how I could make it right with those people. Right. And then continuing that practice through my life to make sure that I keep at least my side of the street clean, because when I don't have that mental stress and mental blockage, things come up. Like, I get stressed, right? I work in real estate. It's a high stress environment. I was stressing out late last night. I was stressing out this morning. But at the end of the day, I can detach from it, because it's like, I'm just stressed about stuff that's out of my control at a certain point, and I just have to have faith that it's going to work out, and it always does. It's more the stress around what if it doesn't happen my way, or how I see it fit.